Looking at a place over in Oriole Park,
Yeah.
the newer section or the older section?
Older section, it's got a double car garage. 329. Decent fuel.
Yeah, they did some renos on it, I take it?
Yeah, new flooring, new kitchen. Well, flooring was probably 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And then the garage is probably 2016.
Okay, yeah. So does any of that devalue over time, any of those renos? I know there's appreciation in the house of value, but if somebody said installed a kitchen 10 years ago, does it lose value over a certain period of time?
Yeah, because that's the land that goes up in value, it's not the house. Yeah, as soon as it kind of goes out of style, it's like, oh yeah, it's now gray instead of
Yeah.
blonde or
So what cycles per year or whatever do you see what trends in decor?
probably every 5 years or something.
Yeah, that sounds roughly about right. From what I've heard anyhow on my side of things. Yeah. It's Noah, right?
Yeah.
How's he doing these days?
Slept through the night. Oh, he was up once.
Yeah.
So I fed him at I think 7. So he woke up at 3, and then I just kind of rocked him to sleep. That takes about 15 minutes, and then I put him.
It's good that it's not a long time for that to get back to sleep.
Yeah. And then if I give him a bottle, it takes about 40 minutes. But then he's like for sure gonna like sleep for a couple hours.
Yeah.
But I don't want him to like every time he wakes up to have to like, oh, I'm getting the bottle.
Yeah, yeah.
So try to rock him to sleep, because sometimes what happens is he'll go lay him down and then he feels like he's falling, so then he wakes up. But if he's got a bottle in him, he's like, oh, I don't care if I'm falling. So then I woke up at 7, gave him a bottle. So 7:40 he finished, put him in his bed, slept for 20 minutes, then he was up.
Yeah.
Then Kate took him, and then I slept for another hour.
Yeah. How's that sleeping cycle for you been decent, or is it
Brutal.
getting, yeah?
Hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah, you know, I guess you, as a parent, you have to work around it as best you can. So,
Yeah, take naps at 2 p.m.
yeah, do you schedule that into your day plan?
It's like, okay, I got a show place at 5, so can I nap from 1 to 2?
You know, that's good. How'd the event aftermath go?
It was, people seemed happy about it.
Yep.
We've gotten some more followers on Facebook, and then I had one lady, she was going to come, but then she had to cancel last minute. She is starting a Airbnb co-host company.
Co-host.
It's kind of like what Dar does, like basically property management. At least there's no property management license for it, so just her co-host.
So is that, just trying to understand that a little bit more, is that basically partnering with somebody to manage the property?
Yeah.
So how does the pay structure and something like that work out?
Everything's negotiable. Yeah, anywhere from, let's see, in Hawaii, it's like 25%. That's pretty sweet. So the house that you live in, is it all filled up?
Yeah, they're both filled up right now.
So that's good.
It is, at the same time, my brain says I kind of wish I could get rid of the people in the other half of the duplex and turn it into an Airbnb, because I think there'd be a little bit more, in my opinion anyhow, whether my parents agree with me or not, it's another thing, but in my opinion, I think there could be a little bit more profitable side of things working to the Airbnb.
Especially since it's so close to the highway.
Yeah.
Does need about 10 to 12,000 worth of furniture.
Yeah, but over a summer, if you get it booked for a summer, that's easily, I'd assume, pretty well paid off for the summer period.
Yeah.
don't get why.
I don't get it. I thought for sure, like, yeah, I was just shocked.
I part of me wanted to, but I think with your mom Penny, she kind of, I think people didn't ask because she mentioned the whole cash flow chart that she had on her property.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think that's why a lot of people didn't really ask about it. And I know with my mom, we chatted a little bit on my way back to my house before she left back to the home. She was kind of thinking that a lot of the pricing that people talk about in these situations are gross and not net. A lot of it. So, you know, I think that would be another thing for in the future, just sort of like a breakdown for whoever's willing to show those numbers, obviously. A breakdown on what the square footage of the property is, how many baths and bedrooms, what they've chosen to, what the costs are associated on a month-to-month basis, and what they've chosen to put out there for a rental cost, just so that a person can correlate that actually, hey, this is actually making more than long-term rent versus, you know, just to give them a bit of an idea or a ballpark,
Yeah, that'd be good.
right? And so, you know, our property, I think it's 1,200 square feet.
Is it a two-story?
Just a basement, unfinished. Both were unfinished and just a main floor level.
Sweet. It's big.
I think that's what it was, but I'm not 100% sure. Again, it's one of those things, and it's just that generational thing too, because my mom kind of talked about it with Stefan a little bit.
Oh, sweet.
Just with the mindset of that generation, they don't want to take risks.
Her generation.
Yeah. Financial stuff like that.
They started a business. They've gotten a lot of property. So
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I guess when they're at that age, it's like Mom was talking about that. She's she's taken out a mortgage on one of her places to then just restructure some stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, when you get to a certain age, it's like, okay, we should be at retirement stage. Then it's like, okay, but if we do this, then it allows us to do that. So,
Yeah, and then just the process behind it, I think for me is trying to figure that out a lot because you know where I am at financially, I can't do it on my own. I know I can't do it on my own, and so it's how do we go about, or sort of an example with like the contract for somebody who's starting out new, who's looking for a financier, what would be a beneficial contract example for the financier that would be more encouraging for them to partner in with the project,
I think it's
right? And I know most times the immediate brain goes, well, 50-50, obviously, but it's like, I can't afford to do 50-50, and a lot of times, from my experience, people that I've kind of hinted at it, they've brought up the fact that, oh, well, I'm taking all the risk on it financially, et cetera, and so on.
shared risk. But I see what they're saying.
But if I'm not able to put any money into it at the beginning, right?
Yeah, that's why they get 50% of the pie.
Yeah.
It's because it's like, well, you're bringing the people and the deal. Did you read Money People Deal?
I haven't. I'll get around to doing that. I know Danelle kind of mentioned it too. So she mentioned it months ago, earlier in November, and I wrote it down and I forgot to follow up with it. And I couldn't find where name or paper I wrote it down on. So she mentioned it last time at the event, so I made sure I got it down.
Yeah, it's a good one.
But it's like just understanding how to present just in different circumstances, I guess, would be another thing to do. Like, because I can't bring any money into it, the only thing that I have for collateral is, you know, sweat and equity. We're unable to do all the work while you're still working a full-time job, and I can be there 8 hours, 10 hours a day working on a project. And then at the end, the only thing that I would require is that you take on an allowance for my personal bills for the month type of deal. And then after that, we split the costs. And I know 50-50 really high hopes for a beginner, and especially if I'm not putting any money into.
We do 60/40.
Well, that'd be, I think, a reasonable amount, is at least 60/40.
I think if you do 50/50 though, I think that's probably best, because then it's like we're equal partners, we're in this together. It's less like, oh, if I fail, it's less on me, like more on me and less on you, because then it's a good way to, because you were talking about bringing skills, but there's three parts to it.
Yeah.
The money, the people, and the deal. So if you bring the deal too, you're actually bringing the opportunity. So that has weight in itself.
Yeah.
And there's people that do money, people, deal, and they hire out all the skills, and they're only bringing the deal and literally picking up the phone and just calling the contractor, and it's like, okay, you go do it.
Yeah.
So if you're on site doing it, like that one for 150,000.
One you've been posting recently with the spiral staircase. Yeah.
I don't think the offer that's on there is going to go through because they put a financing condition on there, and you can't get financing. It's a wood foundation, and the owners don't have a
Wood foundation. Oh.
and it's a half duplex.
Yeah.
So the other side has it to it, but they don't have their engineer's report. You need that for the bank to do financing. You can get the engineer's report afterwards. The guy just goes and cuts holes in there, and just like, yeah, I guess he just looks at like the major points and sees if there's any evidence of shifting or something. And if there is, then he has to put more space. But if there's not, then it's, yeah, here's your 100-year engineer report. So I actually think that one's going to fall through, and it's going to come back on the market. It needs $125,000 worth of work.
Yep.
So, 125,000. Half of that is labor, and half of that's materials.
Yep.
So, it's half of that. 60.
That would be 125. That would be what, 60. Yeah, I would say.
So, half of that is labor, and half of that's materials.
Yeah.
So, we bought it for 250. Then 150.
Yeah. That was the asking price. 150 plus 125.
Then your after repair value is going to be 350.
That's what. Yeah. They indicated 350.
Mortgage. 25. So is that 50? So 100,000. Is that right?
125, 150 is 275. Plus whatever the appreciation on top of that, we get to 350.
No, what's the, so 5, 10, 4. My calculator's over there, it's hard to do math.
350, 125. 1 minus 3 minus 1.5.
Yeah.
186.
186.
Yeah.
Like 186,000. Can't be right.
up to?
I figured it out. I forgot the purchase price.
Okay, yep.
36. There we go. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
So like $36,000.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's gonna be our profit at the end.
Yep.
But over here, you paid yourself $62,000.
Yep.
So theoretically, you could give your partner 100% of the profit,
Yep.
and you're still crushing it.
Yep.
You might have to hire some of the stuff out. It's like,
Well, yeah, there would definitely be some stuff being hired out because I probably, the only thing I wouldn't want to do maybe is plumbing specifically, running the pipes, and then if it's major electrical rewiring, that would be about it.
so how much would that be? Roughly within $1 million.
I'd probably, if I was getting the 62,000, I'd probably take half of that for subcontracting.
But so they're gonna have some of their materials out of that too.
Yep. Yep.
And then you get a credit card where you get like 4% cash back on whatever you buy it from.
Yeah. So has there been any, I know with your history and your experience, has there been any situations where, I know you kind of hinted at it a little bit, where you've done a rental project and have lost money on it? What, I mean, what keeps you on the decision to keep going forward with something like that after you've taken a loss?
Well, I lost money. I lost money on 3 properties.
Yeah.
But I've made a lot more on the other ones.
Yeah, and that's, you got, so how many properties altogether have you done, used, or used as an asset for these projects?
9.
9 altogether?
So like, one of them was a rental home, so I gave $10,000, and he carried me for 4 years. And at the end of 4 years, prices had just dropped a bunch, and then the government changed the rules too.
Yeah.
And so I just gave that back, so I just lost the 10,000. That 5,000 was mine, 5,000 was Cole's. We did another rental around the same time, and then 4 years, same thing happened. That one, we got a free kitchen, because the pipe burst and insurance gave us a free kitchen, but we spent $7,000, there was water coming through the foundation, so we did backhoe and filled it up.
Yeah.
So I lost the 10,000, lost the 7,000. And then Castor, the 7-unit apartment building, we bought it 7 years. We owned it for 7 years. And at the end of 7 years, we lost 12,000. So 25% of that was mine. We only had 8 years left in the mortgage. So we just kept anybody cash for $2,000 a month. But the guys that were our partners wanted to retire and take their money and just go do something else.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that one was a money people deal.
Yep.
They brought $90,000. They qualified for the mortgage. We used the $9,000 to do the renovations, and then my buddy and I managed it.
Yep.
It was crazy too, like in that one.
How did you find the management side of things on?
I managed it from Red Deer.
Yep.
It was 2 hours away.
Yep.
I didn't go to Castor for 4 years.
How does that work out?
That's good.
Yeah.
I had one manager, he would break into people's apartments and steal their liquor.
Oh, wow.
So we fired him.
Yeah.
And then he referred us to this like single mom, and she was like the best. Like she actually tried buying the building. She should have owned it. She basically did own it. She did everything. So if you get a good partly to do with our contractor. And so then I borrowed $20,000 line of credit, used that to finish some stuff off. But then our money partners, he went down there for a week, lived there, worked on some of the renovations. Carter and I went up there and did some renovations. Like I did caulking on a property, I've never done any renovations on anything.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, it's someone else's money, there's more weight to it.
Yep.
So I was like, I don't know, go, this is there for drive 2 hours one way.
Yep.
So yeah, I tried really hard because it was someone else's money, it's your first one, you gotta make sure it's like,
Yep.
it's a reputation. I know there's great friends that, their daughter goes to our church.
Okay, yep. So with that past contractor, what happened? What was that whole ordeal about with? You indicated that there was issues with the contract losing money.
His bill was always $4,000 a month,
Yeah.
no matter how much time spent there.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So, I'm like, yeah, it doesn't matter.
That's some questionable, yeah. Billing things, absolutely, yeah. Hmm. I guess it depends too, if the contract, if that's his monthly rate, I guess that's one thing, so. But if you can't support it with the hours registered, then yeah, it's questionable.
Yeah, it was like, we had a quote, and it's like, it was that 25% more than what the quote was, and there was no additional work added.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. How'd the,
That's okay. Paid for him to live somewhere.
yeah, I'm sure she did. That's all right. Yeah, no, I just, yeah, that's good to know. And I know I try to do my best as a contractor to get decent prices, and I find a lot of people, at least in my circle of customers thus far, have been very reluctant on pricing this day and age. I don't get why it is, but it is. It's like,
Didn't you do a contract? You did a contract with me.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah,
if they don't pay you.
yeah. Well, it's not so much that, it's they look at the quote and they say, well, let me go find 3 other options, and then this is the cheapest one here, so I'm gonna go with that. And it's like, it's so frustrating on that side of things. It's like, how do you balance out, being a fair price versus undervaluing what you're worth just to get the job?
Right. Yeah,
Right.
that'd be tough.
It's a tough situation, because that's kind of where I feel like I'm at all the time when I'm putting out quotes. It's like the software that I have through Cost Certified calculates through with their partnership with Home Depot. A lot of their stuff is in their library is from Home Depot. That's material wise and everything like that. And it's priced based on your postal code region. So if I'm pricing out something in Calgary, and I get their postal code, the prices in the library is just for that region. Or at least that's what they claim.
That's cool.
So it's like, well, this is kind of the price value, and for where I'm at, I do at least a 30% markup on my prices, because there's also delivery charges that you gotta pay for, shipping back and forth, picking up the material, dropping it off the work site. So I just add 30% on top of it, and people get all uptight about that. It's like, why are you charging me more when it's at this? It's like, well, you can go get it yourself. I don't need you to do that. And, then there's
It'll
no.
take longer.
It'll take longer, but then I can't guarantee the quality of the material because I'm not the one picking it up, right? So they go and buy.
Like that sheet of plywood or the sheet of countertop that you got from me.
Yeah. Yeah, that one that came in the box and it was all wrecked. It's like, well, that's no good. And so it's like, one of those things, like, putting paint up on a wall, if the customer gets the paint and it goes on the wall, and most paints are pretty good nowadays, but you know, back in the day there would be shrinkage and runs and everything like that, or fade through, bleed through painting over one color and it bleeds through, right? And it's like, well, you picked up the paint, I can't come back and, you know, do it on warranty because you picked up the paint. I didn't have nothing to do with that process. And then they get all mad because I'm not doing it on warranty kind of thing. But it's like, you know, well, you had an option to have me do it, pay for all that stuff, and you didn't want to. So it's interesting, you know. And
It's tough when you know all the rules.
well, you know most of the general ideas behind the rules, and it's just a matter of, you know, educating people on it a little bit.
I was gonna see if that was a fan for that.
Maybe the top one. There you go.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you're welcome. I know a good contractor. If you're looking for contract work down the road, he might be able to tell you a few more things.
That's awesome.
How did the renovation at the basement suite thing that you had come along? Is it all fixed up?
No.
Still working on it?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Because like it flooded.
Yeah, you had mentioned.
And I was actually talking with Onside today, because so it had like a tanny brown color on the walls before,
Yep.
and so then we're doing white, and they did 2 coats, and you can see like the brown through it,
It's bleeding through, yeah.
and they're like, oh, like typically we only do 2 coats, and I'm like, well, I can see it from 4 feet away, the brown, and like the painter showed me, their painter showed me, and so the painter dropped off an invoice today saying, oh yeah, like here's the invoice for the 3rd coat, and I'm like, I look back at my conversation with Onside, he's like, yeah, and so because they cut out 4 feet of 2 feet of drywall all the way around,
Yeah.
and then they had to repaint it, so that's like the insurance side of thing, to re-put the drywall
Yeah.
and put the paint back on.
Yeah.
And
What's it? Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I'm just thinking on that for the 2 feet of drywall. Somebody was talking to me about something like that, similar, where they cut 2 feet off, and then they had to go around on their hands and knees to patch it up. And it's like they would have been just simpler to do 4 feet and put new sheeting up, and then they wouldn't have to be on their hands and knees all the way around. I can't remember who was telling me that, but it's like,
but you know why they do the 2 feet.
yeah, it's where it comes up from the bottom of the floor. So.
Yeah, so they can cut the drywall sheet in half and then have 2.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, arguing with the insurance on that today. I know I'll win because it's like I have a screenshot of him saying yes, I agree.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you can't leave it like that. And then I didn't know what fish eyes were until he told me their supervisor came, and he's like, oh, like yeah, the drywall there's a bunch of fish eyes down there. And I'm like, I have no idea what that is. He's like, you don't know what fish eyes are? I'm like, no.
I'm assuming it's the pitting and the drywall mud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's hundreds of them. And he's like, yeah, like this isn't to our quality.
It's your drywall guy.
Yep. But since then they've painted and put the flooring and baseboards in.
Yeah.
And so, and then they don't want to charge me, or they want me to pay for that.
Pay
They're
for-
going to paint. It's like, well, you
yeah.
got to come back anyways to repaint it. So it's
Repaint it, and if they're doing it properly, they would honestly come down and do another skin coat of mud to rectify those fish eyes
Yep, 100%.
on warranty because they screwed it up the first time.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right? And so, you know, it's one of those things too, like I've been in situations like that before too, where it's like, okay, some of these things do happen. I try to let them know, and then from there, it's like, it's not that I'm just covering it over with paint. I'll stop and say, okay, well, there's these areas. If you see anything, let me know and I'll come back and I'll do my best to clean it up. And then if something happens after the fact, well, then it's like, okay, well, there's sort of a limitation to the unforeseen things, right?
Not a new home builder.
Yeah. So it's one of those things, and it's like, if they're starting to see pits and the contractor sees it, and it's like, okay, didn't see this happening or whatever, and so it's like, yeah, I can come back and do it, and that's on me. But if it's something that you're okay with, and that would be a conversation I would have with the customer before moving on to the painting stage, obviously.
Yeah.
If you're
You
okay
think the
with
painter
this,
would've caught it.
we'll paint it and see how it happens. If it works, then that's great. If you want it to be, and I do that too. For mudding, I do 3 coats of mud as a standard thing, just for leveling out purposes.
Yeah, your drywall patch on the paper towel holder, I still like it because my handyman went there and fixed it 2 times.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, Josh, help.
Yeah.
And now it's like perfect, and like the way you blended the paint that one time too,
Yeah.
in the corner there, you did a very good job.
Well, I appreciate that, and so and that's part of what's in the bag here. I know I was talking about the concept of epoxy countertops,
Oh yeah, oh, that's cool.
and so I brought a few samples
That's fun.
if you wanted to take a look at,
Sure. That's cool.
and just the thing with the epoxy is it's in essence a self-sealed contained apparatus, right? So there's no water getting in underneath the seams or whatever. And so, and this was kind of in my background, in my mind when I was doing your countertops, when I first approached you on things.
Mhm.
And so I did a couple test pieces, and
They look like paintings.
essentially that's what they could be. So it's all MDF, and you can use whatever material you want because the epoxy is self-leveling. And there's obviously some process to leveling out some bigger areas first.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
So I tried this one just with blue, just to see what the colors would look like and just see the texture and patterns I can get out of it.
That's cool. I want this on my wall.
So this is one of the things that I'm kind of thinking about doing. I want to try to get art canvas, because this is kind of, it's got a
Chip
little
your
bit
floor.
of weight,
Fell
a lot
off.
of bit of weight to it. So I was wondering, I'm going to try to over the holidays or whatever, try to get some paint canvas and then put a 2x4 but a frame, wood frame around it, and attach some canvas to it to see how the canvas applies to the or the epoxy applies to the canvas.
That's great.
But just different things and different techniques. Like I like how that flared out and from the center out the way it got going, and just different techniques. Some of it's with alcohol. So with this section here, they call it a crackle effect from the guys I follow with YouTube and whatnot, and it's just an alcohol-based agent you spray on, and it forces the sort of the fisheye crackle pattern in there.
That's cool.
So
I like this one.
yeah, and that's they call those micro fractures. It's to mimic stone, right? And so you can go artsy, in different things in different directions with it, because rock really doesn't have a pattern to it. And there was a lot of people that I've shown some of these things. It's like, oh, I really don't like that. It just doesn't seem like it flows with the rest of the grain. And it's like, well, I've seen granite stone where you've got grains going this way, and then you've got one going the exact opposite direction, but that's just how the stone is. And
It's really cool.
so the thing with this is that with this, everything's got a square footage cost to it. Laminate's your cheapest, obviously, and it's running about $20 to $30 a square foot. It's depending on the material and whether or not it's being installed as well, or if it's just being built. And then
So like an island would be.
yeah.
How big's an island?
Well,
2
some,
feet
yeah, so an island's usually 4 feet by 2 feet, so that's 8 square feet, and you're charging $30 a square foot.
That's cheap.
So that's not too bad. Whereas if you do the same thing on stone, average, the cheapest concept of stone is corian. And it's just that thin 1/4 inch or whatever, and they build it up to the thickness they need, and the cheapest that I've seen for that is about $56 a square foot for corian. Anything beyond that, marble, granite, you're looking at $100 to $150 a square foot.
Okay, so double or triple.
Double or triple. With this medium and this platform, I'm charging, for people who are interested, I would charge $45 a square foot. So it's a little bit better than laminate. For example, you're not gonna scratch it with a knife
Yeah.
real easily.
And it looks nicer.
And it looks nicer, it looks like stone.
Yeah.
Then somebody says, well, where do you see blue stone? I don't like the color of that. Well, that's funny, you might not like the color of that. The other thing that's interesting about this forum and this medium is I worked at a place that had some not cupboard, but well, I'll just show this one.
Wow.
There's another one. You can go
That's
with
cool.
themes, right?
That's awesome.
So I decided, St. Patrick's Day was coming up. I wanted to try to do something St. Patrick's-y.
That's cool.
Green is St. Patrick's color. Not my favorite color. I just don't like green. But I thought, what goes well with green? Well, there's that amethyst color. And so
This one's light.
because it's cardboard.
Crazy.
They have this old place I worked at, they had cardboard cores for supplying and shipments and stuff like that.
That's cool.
And so I wanted to see just if I can apply it to cardboard without it shifting too much. But if you look down the line, there's very minimal shift.
That's so cool.
And-
I like the gold in it too.
Well, that's the thing.
That's
Like
sweet.
St. Patrick's Day, I just got a sticker, put it down on the color. Like the process is with epoxies, every layer takes 24 hours to cure properly. The first layer is a quick thing of primer to make a base coat. So if you look on the edge there, it's a black primer.
Okay.
And that's just sort of a base background so that it's, if anything, if any of the color that you put onto it sort of fades through, like right here,
Yeah, like the spots. Yeah.
it's black
Yeah.
behind it, so it looks like it could be part of the overall form. And so I decided purple is a decent color to go with the green, so I tried to sort of make a amethyst
Yep.
vein in there, and I thought that looked pretty cool.
Yeah, it does look cool. That was really cool.
And I added the gold because of St. Patrick's Day, a little gold flecks. And then once the color is cured, you gotta scuff sand it. I hit this one just a little bit too hard with a grit. Like I think I used 120, but you can see in the gold there is sanding scratches in the gold.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's part of it.
But if I would have used a finer grit, I think that would have solved that problem. But these are just things I wanted to do just as test pieces, just to try things
They're
out.
pretty sweet.
And yeah, if you look down the line, you can see it's curved just slightly
That's so cool.
down the line. And that, to me, if I would have done this other side too, it would have solved that problem.
Oh, interesting.
Right? Because what happens with wood specifically is they teach you that whatever you do on one side, you got to do to the other side just for and air flow and air movement. So if you seal this side up and you have air able to dry out the other side, it's going to curl to the opposite direction, which doesn't have the air drying it out.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So I did that one.
That's cool.
And I thought that's pretty cool. And you can sort of see there is a bit of a honeycomb texture to this, and you can see it a little bit on this side, and you can sort of feel it a little bit
Yeah, you
as
can see
well.
it. It looks cool though.
And a solution to that would be just to add another thin clear coat over top of the color once the color is cured. So if I wanted to, and that's the other thing with this, where if it's stone, laminate, or anything of the above, if it gets chipped, like that, for example, you can't fix that.
Yeah.
Right?
You have to
It's
take the whole
ruined,
thing
you'd
off.
have to take the whole thing off. Whereas this, if there's scratches happening, because you've got two layers, you're only scratching the top layer, and to fix that would just be a quick sand, and then flood coat with another clear base.
It's nail polish.
Yeah. So that was the second one I did, just on the cardboard, just to see what the cardboard would do and how it would react to the epoxy, to see if it's just going to, fold in half because of the liquid and the humidity and the moisture in the epoxy. And it really, like I said, it really barely moved at all.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that one was pretty good. And so I decided, okay, well, let's try again. First one was lighter colors, and the second one was green. Let's see how close I can get to a stone pattern on it.
Have you ever tried using some as like countertop just to see like just putting dishes on it normally and
There are tests, and there are, like, this is their high gloss finish, and there's other products that go more of a matte, and it's more of a, how would I describe it? It's more of a rougher finish, not so smooth.
yeah, the smooth is probably better.
And the smooth is this. The rougher finish, it's designed to sort of be more sort of goosebumpily, if that's, or sort of an orange peel kind of feel to it.
Like on the cars.
Yeah, so that if you're running things over top of it, it's kind of gliding on top of those high points
Oh really?
and not on the long lower surface, so it's rarely scratched up. So this was my third attempt.
Yeah, that's pretty. Yeah, that looks so good.
And
It looks like
it looks like
granite.
stone.
Looks like
right?
granite. Yeah.
And so you're only paying $45 a square foot for something that looks like stone,
Yeah.
and
That's cool.
versus paying $100 to $150 a square foot for the same thing. And with this, it so you can see just it's not very thick, right?
That's on here.
Yeah. It's maybe an eighth of an inch in thickness, but you can see just the flexibility in it.
That's cool. That's so cool. You can work with like your interior designer. It's like, hey, what colors are you gonna stage?
Well,
on
and
this
that's the thing that I personally I like blue, and so with this, because it's a way in a medium, you can make it a one of a kind custom look. You can add whatever feature you want, and if you really want, you could do a theme for a countertop.
Because how much would theme granite be?
Yeah, right.
Like, because you can get like, so, hey, you want blue and something? Sure, I'll find it for you. But it might be.
Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, they could find blue in grain with stone, but it's going to cost you
Arm and a leg and a thigh.
arm and a leg to find that right stone, and you're lucky if you get maybe half of this.
That's crazy.
The only thing that I probably would have done differently is just the direction of that blue. Like, I like this direction more than going straight across, but it's one of those things because it's a test piece. I want to figure it out. So you can see here that there is a bit of a mark.
What happened there?
It's just the pieces probably rubbing together when they were still a little too fresh. And that, again, because it's in the clear and not the color, all I would have to do is sand it and then put a new flood coat over it to get rid of it. Now, there are some things that do arise up just because of the way that it's applied, because it's a heat chemical reaction that sets it from being a viscous to a hard liquid. You can get potentially get bubbles within the layers.
Okay. Yeah.
And then that would be a way, what I would do is I would just sand that as much as I can to polish it, and then flood coat it again to see if they go away. But it's one of those things that if you're really a guy, and again, the other thing too is it's not going to cost an arm and a leg to change it, and it's something you don't have to keep pulling out every 5 years if you want to change it.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of sanding this down, applying a new base coat of primer, and then picking and choosing the new color you want to put on top.
That's cool. You'd need like a sticker saying not granite so that people didn't set their hot pots on it.
Well, you can, but it's like, again, it just reactivates the epoxy itself. So there is potential for heat that if you put a hot pot down on it, like they've done tests on this, and one company did a test where they, took it off the stove, put it on their epoxy countertop, and there's really minimal effect being done to it a whole lot, because again, it's in that clear coat. So if there is any warp or whatever sag, you just go back, sand it, and apply a new clear coat for leveling purposes.
Even just having that sit on the table looks cool.
Right? And so, there's like, and even something like this, if you decided, if a person wanted to
just fill it in.
well, that's all you would do. If you would have to, you could just redo this whole thing,
That'd be a sweet table.
and
Man, that'd be cool.
you wouldn't have to take off the old laminate. You would just have to round over this edge so that it's not as sharp. Fill in the low spots with a Bondo, sand it, sand everything, apply your primer coat, and then decide what direction you want the grain to go. If you want to do a theme in the surface, and I know I've always kind of thought in the back of my mind, if somebody was willing to do something, do sort of like a galaxy theme, where you got a black hole on one side of the table, and all the colors kind of being worked over that way and swirled around and absorbed into a black hole.
That'd be epic.
Yeah, but again, it's just things like that. And you can do the reverse. You can do white with black. And I know my first one's always the toughest one to do
Is
because
this your first one?
no,
No.
the first one was on my first one I did was on my Facebook company page, and it wasn't the greatest because again, it's the first time doing it, and you're not really 100%. You do your test piece, and then as you go along, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, you can talk to the client and say, oh, do you see anything you don't like, you want to try to reduce, or you want to add something to it, and they wanted more black. And I learned less black is always better than too much black, because once you get too much black in it, you can't get rid of it. Yeah,
That's
and
cool.
so like that's pretty cool.
So the base color on this one was black?
This base color I did on this one
That's so cool.
was white.
White? Huh. Oh, okay, cool.
And yeah, again, just the reasoning for it was if anything fades, you know, it gets into a white streak like this. And again, like it's unless you're really looking at it
Yeah, it took
dead on,
you a while to figure it out.
you wouldn't know. Like I could hold this up against any granite piece,
Yeah.
and they would say if I put it on a shelf or something or in a display case, they would all automatically assume it's stone granite.
Yeah.
Until they
100%.
go and take a closer look at it. But that's the one thing that with the,
So cool. I'd love a desk out of that. That'd be cool.
well, you know, there are options, and I know, yeah, like I thought the black hole scenario would be kind of cool to do. I thought, and if somebody wants something done with, you know, a theme thing, so they like Halloween, they want a Halloween style countertop, you can mix the Halloween colors together and put different things in it. I know I seen with an epoxy one time video, some guy did a beach on
yeah.
one of these, so
That'd
they
be cool.
they did the sand and they actually put the blue on, and then they put the white there, and then they took straw. And again, a lot of this too, the charge goes up, like $45 is your basic, but it goes up with just the complexity and the size of things.
Regular artists making the foam as the water comes.
Well, and that's
back.
what they did. They made foam swells with the waves crashing on the beach.
Crazy.
So from the top down, you had your beach on one side and your waves on the other side coming onto the beach, and it's like that's pretty cool.
That's
So yeah, this is
so cool.
well, and that's the thing, and people are hesitant because
I'd put that in a flip
yeah.
all day long. Like, I put that in there.
Well, and the thing that they're hesitant is they're not sure of how well it holds up, but it lasts. Like I said, it lasts
Yeah, that's pretty good.
pretty good.
Yeah. It's like almost a 90-degree there. That's crazy.
That's because
That's pretty good.
with the epoxy. That's just because it's liquid. It's got that flexibility to it.
Wow, that's crazy.
So and yeah, so when they did their testing on this video, they had a countertop, and they dropped, you know, a 5-pound weight from 18 inches high, dropped it, didn't do anything. They got to a 25-pound, and when it hit the countertop on the edge of the 25-pound weight, it did chip a little bit in the epoxy. But it's like something like that. It's like it's in, again, because you got the two layers. You're chipping the clear coat, you're not chipping the color.
Oh, that's cool.
So it would just be a matter of sanding it, reapply another layer of clear, and because it's self-leveling, it's going to fill in that area,
Oh, that's cool.
right, and heal that area up where they damaged it. And they went from 5 pounds to 45-pound plate, dropping it, and 45-pound plate didn't do anything. They actually took a hammer, a sledgehammer, started pounding on the countertop in the center of this countertop. And the only reason the epoxy cracked was because the particle board underneath failed and broke.
That's fun.
And at the top surface, it was just a crack. Underneath, you could see the particle board crumble. So it's like this stuff holds up really well.
That's so cool. There's something. Yeah, this is sweet. That's fun. If I post this, people are gonna be wanting to get it done.
Well, that's the thing. So
Are you ready for people?
I want to be ready for people.
That's a yes. What is it? If you're at 80% of the way there, just say yes or something like that. Or...
Yeah, and I know ideally it's a 3-day process. So the first day is for taping everything off, prep sanding and putting your primer on. And the second day is getting your colors together, mixing the colors, and applying the color with the heat treatment to just activate and get all the air bubbles out of it. You can do that with either a blowtorch or a heat gun. And then just while you're applying your color, just different techniques with brushes or different things to apply the color. Like most of this was just done out of a pour.
Wow.
And the same thing with this purple one.
I like the purple.
So I applied the green, and then I decided, well, okay, green's great. Let's go back with the purple. And that's what I did with this one. I wanted to see in the videos what they do is they would pour all their color at once in one pot. And I thought, well, that's great, okay, but let's see what happens if I pour the green on, get the green where I want it, and then what the reaction would be with a different color on top of the green. Would it just bleed into it so much that it muds up so much that it looks like this? Or is it going to stand out and be separate from the rest of the colors? And so that's what I did with this purple streak, is I mixed white, purple, black. There was some silver mixed in there with metallic to it. And I poured it back and forth, and the little bit that I had left over, I poured this direction all wonky.
That's fun.
But the thing about this is that it's not going to be the same as anybody else's
Yeah.
design, right? It's going to be custom
Your
unique to
centerpiece.
where what you're looking at, what your colors are, and even little bits like this, you go back with a tool
Do
and
a feature wall.
there's that too.
That'd be great.
They actually have, I haven't gotten into it because I want to get confident with countertops before moving on to anything else, but they've done shower walls with this versus tile.
That'd be cool.
And so, I thought that'd be kind of cool one day if I really got to a point where you can do a shower
Yeah.
that is basically,
Marble.
well, that or have a theme, right? You
Yeah.
could do it where your walls are a horizon of a beach, and at the bottom is the ocean, and you could pour this onto your shower floor pan
That's crazy.
with sand and
For like commercial buildings, you could like really. It's like if you had a like a swimwear
yep.
place to make your. Yeah.
And because it's the same medium they use for garages. It's the same thing, but instead of doing the designs like this, most of the garage guys, they're just putting paint flakes into it.
Because this needs to run off.
Yeah.
And you were saying before the garage can't really run off because you got walls.
Well, it settles, so they spread it out with a squeegee. I've seen the process.
Yeah.
And
Jacques used to do that.
yeah, and so they spread it out. And one guy, they did do one video where they did a full garage and they just poured it out and spread it out with a squeegee as best as they could, and then they just let it settle, and then over their period of time, thing with it is because it's a thermal setting reactive process with heat. The higher the temperature, the faster it's going to cure, the faster it's going to set up. And there were some things too, like for the first one I built, I remember doing the countertop. It was an L-shaped countertop, and there was a seam on there that was high, so you just hit it with a belt sander and knock it flat. And the reason why I brought it up to the client with this versus laminate, because they had two posts coming through their island in their kitchen, and I thought, well, that's dumb. Dumb design, because if you use stone, granite, or laminate, you're going to have a seam there because you got to go around the posts. And I said, this you don't need to. It's seamless, right? And there's not going to be any seams. It's going to be continuous flow, and you can do this too without actually having to move the. If it's an above sink on countertop, you can tape off the sink, seal it up, and you can pour over the sink, so you don't actually have to rip the sink out. You just have to clean up real well around the edges, and then tape off the sink and just pour over it so that you can have a continuous flow line. If you had a sink there, you can have a continuous line going through where the sink sits, and then once everything's cured, you cut it all back out, and then it looks like the sink's over top of where the vein is, so that it doesn't look like it's offset too much. Right?
That's cool.
Yeah, and just different things. Like there is a little bit of scratching there, but again,
That's before.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then that's just with the smooth coat and the smooth finish on it. But because there's the other product that hardens it a little bit more than this, it's like curling ice. That's we're thinking of. Instead of a ice rink where it's nice and flat, with curling it's all little, they spray it in a technique that bubbles it and puts bumps on the ice so that the stone can go over the bumps.
Right.
Same kind of concept with this, is that the other finish is a harder finish. It's not as shiny as this, it's more of a matte finish, but it has little bumps throughout the whole thing where the plates and everything glide over top of it.
Like the expensive arborate, it's got like the rings
Yeah.
and stuff, so it lasts longer.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's like any other thing too, like even with this countertop, over time you're going to have scratches in the arborite and the laminate, but you can't do anything to get rid of those scratches. They're there for however long you decide until you're ready to remove the laminate and do the laminate. Where with this, if there's any scratches, major scratches, it's just a matter of, number one, you either get a polishing kit and polish it out, or number two, you scuff sand it, buy the clear coat product, mix it 1-to-1 and just pour it over, brush it on, roll it on, and then just let it cure for 24 hours.
That's cool. Maybe I should do this in a flip.
That's there. That's ideally, I'd like to get into doing this because I think it's an underutilized product. Because I think too often people look at these epoxy things and they think, oh, I'm going to make a live edge tabletop and do artsy fartsy stuff with it. And it's like, that's great, but you can do non-evasive countertop refurnishing where you don't have to remove everything to redo a countertop. You can keep the existing countertop. You just apply this over top of the countertop.
That's good.
Now, there's other different forms of this where they do plastic wrapping around countertops, but I find that's cheap and
Yeah.
it doesn't last long.
Yeah,
I
that
know
doesn't
you
sound
kind
much.
of match, or maybe your mom Penny kind of mentioned she had a wrap on one of her countertops, and you see
Was it at the tub? Was it a countertop?
it was blue.
Blue.
It was a blue
Oh,
countertop,
yeah.
and it was
Yeah,
previously
it was like
wrapped.
peeling up.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's because those things they don't last because
It's a sticker.
it's a sticker. It's based off of a glue adhesive, and once that glue wears off, it peels up and curls up. And so I always personally, when stopping at home church and the church that we go to, and we go to the kids wing, I always cringe when I see their reception desk because it's a wrap, and they've got laminate next to it that's sort of similar in style, but it's like I look at that and they went for a cheap wrap around an existing countertop, and it's like they could have come to me with this and it would have looked a lot nicer
Yeah.
and it would be lasting a lot longer. And so, you know, I don't know how it would work with one of those wraps. And my mindset is,
And then putting it over top of the wrap.
well, that's the thing. I don't know how it would react because this is all, the laminate is paper based. And so it's paper based with resin in between the layers, and it's really compressed tightly. And so it is a wood product where this, you scuff sand it, it lasts, and then you got, the only concern would be is if the glue underneath of it starts to peel back. But the theory is that if you're pouring this epoxy over top of the whole thing and sealing off the bottom, there's no air getting into it, there's no water getting into it, and because it's sealed top and bottom, if the glue underneath deteriorates, it's got no place to move up
Yeah, that
and
makes sense.
pull up. And so,
It's like if you poured this over top of this,
Yep.
the table's not gonna fold.
No.
Yeah.
no. And so it was just a matter of sealing up any exposed areas, and that's why I would round this edge off, because these edges are always notorious for opening up and you get water underneath. So if you round this over, apply a Bondo, sand it, and then do your prep with the primer, let it sit for 24 hours, and then you decide what colors you want. And like, even something like this, you can take this pattern or do a pattern similar. It's like, oh, I want a straight grain or a diagonal grain. And you start with some basic pouring, and then it's like, okay, where do you want the grain direction to go from where we're at right now? If you can make it go one way, you can make it come back the other way. And you could have done something like this instead of black and white. Like I said, you could do red and black, or blue and purple, or even green and purple.
When you're showing stuff to people, people will always go with like the stuff they're familiar with. They
Yeah.
like to see the I could have the green and the purple and the gold. That would look so cool.
Yeah.
So you almost need that to turn people towards what they actually should.
Well,
pick.
and that's the thing, right? And
Not
that's
the other one would be bad.
no, and I get that, and then that's the one thing too, And you can see too, like with this, I decided, with the gray, there was some metallics in it. The blue had metallic color to it, so there is a bit of a shine and a sparkle with it. With this white here, I decided I just wanted to do flat, just to see what the difference is between a silver here and along there, and just see what white would look like, and see what the difference is. So you can say, oh, this has got a bit of a silver shine to it, and that's the thing about granite and natural stone too, is that you got sparkle in rock. It doesn't matter what the type of rock it is, there's going to be some sort of sparkle to it at some point in time. So, and that's the other thing too with this, is like, if a person's got an idea of what they want, they're always willing to, you're more than welcome to bring in a laminate sample and say, I kind of like this laminate, but I want it to last longer than laminate. It's like, okay, well, this is the pattern, these are the colors, we'll mimic it as best as I can. Now, it's never going to be an exact match, but then at the same point, I don't want to try to have an exact match, because then it's, you may as well have gone with the laminate if you want an exact match.
That's good.
Yeah, but like,
Is this the same stuff that they put on windshields, like when they fill in your?
I don't It's with the windshield crack repair kit. Now I was there a little bit. It's a different resin. It's because this is a 2-part mixture. You got part A, part B, you mix them together, and then you pour, and that's that mixture that you combine the two that creates the thermal set-in properties and thermal the heat reaction with the glass repairs. And there's a company, another company outside of Red Deer that does the same thing, but they use a UV resin where the epoxy pouring, it gives that 24 hours to allow the color to flow naturally. So like some of this stuff, I remember the first time I poured it and did the countertop with the island, with the posts, I poured it and I went over it. Because it's taking 24 hours for it to flow and move in a natural process, there's things that always kind of you don't see at first, and then you go back and look at it 3 hours, 4 hours later, and it's like, I remember pouring it, taking my torch to it, hitting it with the torch, and then I came back and I'm looking at it and I'm seeing these dark lines going through the whole thing, and I'm like, where are those lines coming from? I don't remember putting lines in that area. Couldn't figure it out. And then did the second countertop, did the same thing, and by the time I was done the second section, going over to the first section, that's when I saw the lines. I'm like, that's weird, I don't know, I'll keep going. Did the third section, went back and looked at my second section, and again, these lines are showing up. But there's lines going this way, and there's lines going this way. And that's when it kind of clicked in my head. Well, I ran the torch this way, and then I ran the torch this way. And these darker lines started to show up from just where the heat was on the torch after the fact. I didn't see them there at first. It wasn't until 3 hours later
Crazy.
that they started to show up. And it's like, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So there's things that happen just with the reaction and the colors and everything like that, and just with the heat treat, that you can change things as the process is being done. And so they say wait 3 hours. You've got about 3 hours to work with things a little bit, if you want to add things or whatever, because it's still tacky enough where it sort of combines in the pattern. Like that's what happened with this purple. So I did the green, and I waited about an hour or so before I did the purple, and because I didn't want it, my concern was that it would bleed into the green so much it becomes muted and you don't see it. So I waited that 3 hours and then poured it on top of it, and because it's still that point where it's still flexible, it just flowed in and leveled itself off with the rest of the green. And then I put the sticker on there, and then that again is after the 3 hours. Put the sticker down, tap it into place.
Oh, the sticker's in there.
The sticker's in there. It's in between the two layers. It's
That's
the
cool.
layer of color. I put the sticker down, and then I put the layer of clear coat over top.
That's cool.
And I was slightly concerned because last year I was working for a company driving trucks, and I got a butterfly stuck in the grill. And I thought to myself, well, that'd be kind of cool to see what, it's a dead butterfly, but it was an intact butterfly. It was about the size of the palm, basically, wingspan. And it's like, well, okay, I'll put this in epoxy, and it'd be kind of cool to epoxy an insect and see what that looks like. Well, the color in the wings was yellow and black. The minute I got the epoxy on it, the color disappeared. And it's like, huh, okay. Not sure what that's all about.
That's
I guess.
cool.
So you still see the layer of the wing black in the color, but the pigment, the yellow, and it disappeared. So it's like, maybe I should have waited until the first layer was hard and then poured the second layer over top of everything and see what that would happen. So I was kind of concerned that the green in this would, disappear because of that, but it didn't. And then, you let it sit and then sand everything, and I poured another layer of the finished layer of the second coat with clear on top of it, and it seals it in like that. It's
Yeah.
never going to move. You can't get your finger in there to grab an edge. So that's the one thing about the epoxy that I find is pretty cool, is that there's no edges, there's nothing to get caught on. Now that's not to say that, you know, you'd have to really work at damaging this. Like I'd be interested to try to do another core with cardboard, have it set up, and then take a hammer to it, hit it in the center, and see what happens.
Yeah.
Right? To see what's going to fail first. Is it the epoxy going to fail first? Or is it the cardboard underneath that's going to fail?
Because what's, like, obviously that's free, the cardboard.
Yeah, I just grabbed it because they were throwing it out anyhow. So
That's cool. Huh. Well, that was fun.
yeah. And you know, there are some minor defects, and again, these were just test pieces, so I wasn't looking at trying to make them perfect. I was just seeing what they would look like.
Yep.
Trying to do things like there is a little imperfection here at this spot where there's some dirt or something got caught in it.
Yeah.
And you can see a little bit of a wow there on that color, but overall, like that's
Pretty sweet.
minute compared to a bunch of the rest of it, right?
Yeah, no, that's really cool. That's fun.
So, yeah, and so like a person has an idea, oh, well, here's a rock that I found. These are the colors that kind of I liked from the rock. It's like, okay, well, let's take that color from the rock and apply it with epoxy and see what we can do to get close to it. And then and again, the thing is I always try to do a test piece first to see if the person likes it or not.
Oh, that's
Right? And my test pieces are big enough that it's actually, you can actually see it versus the laminate ones where it's like, you know, you might only get this big of a piece, and visually trying to think, oh, what's it going to
What's the
look
rest of
like?
it? Yeah.
What's it going to look like on a bigger piece? Well, this is a decent size where it's like, even this, it's like, it's decent enough that you can sort of see the overall scheme of what it could look like.
Yeah.
And apply it to your brain, a person's mind mentally. Whereas if you're only taking, you know, this much and this, like now imagine this much on this board table.
Yeah.
Where with this you can stick it in the board table and it's like, huh, okay, yeah, I can sort of see that. Or I actually prefer it going that way.
Yeah.
Or more like this, so that the grain goes from one corner to the other corner.
Ooh, that'd be cool.
Or, you know, scratch all that, just hollow out the center and we can make a river table.
That's so cool.
So,
Can I grab a picture of all three of them?
oh yeah, no, absolutely. And there is some things like because they were test piece on the back side. I didn't really clean these up until today, but with the flow, because it flows, there's little drips that form there. Those I could have cleaned up fairly easy. After 3 hours, it's still pliable. That if you take a knife, you can cut it off with a knife easier.
That's cool.
I just
So if it was like if someone did make like a table, just for instance,
Yeah.
then they wouldn't feel it or something.
Yeah, and it's something that they would sand the bottom after the color's applied and sand everything on the bottom edge to make it nice and smooth. And then I'd probably go back with a roller with a darker color just to seal that bottom edge off.
That's so cool.
But yeah, that was my next process in this is like that's those scratches are there from